Welcome to Work from the Inside Out, a podcast that highlights real-life stories, practical strategies, and best practices for transitioning your career from unhappiness and dissatisfaction to fulfillment, meaning, and joy. Now here is your host, career and executive coach, Tammy Gooler Loeb.
Hey everyone. I am really delighted to introduce today's guest, Addie Swartz. As Chief Executive Officer of reacHIRE, Addie leads the company's mission to help organizations unlock the leader in each individual. She collaborates with Fortune 500 companies to design and deliver innovative programs that increase engagement, initiative, and readiness to build thriving teams and future leaders. A recognized expert in leadership development and workforce innovation, Addie has spent more than 3 decades championing ways to support and advance professionals throughout their careers. She began her career at Bain and Company and went on to build new ventures within Disney, Reebok, and Lotus Development before founding 3 companies dedicated to empowering women and girls. Addie holds a BA from Stanford University and an MBA from Northwestern's Kellogg School of Management. Please join me in welcoming Addie Swartz. Welcome, Addie.
Thank you so much, Tammy. I'm so thrilled to be here to chat with you today.
I am really excited to have you here. I've been a big fan of your work and the work of reacHIRE. So welcome. So as you know, on Work from the Inside Out, we love to begin at the beginning and talk about the formative years. So take us back to those early years and how they may or may not have informed where you are today.
Thanks so much, Tammy. And my entrepreneurial journey actually started when I was 12 with apple pies. I wanted to go on a school trip to Spain, but I had to figure out a way to pay for it. So I started baking and selling pies to 3 area restaurants. My kitchen turned into a little factory. Flour was everywhere. My 2 brothers were enlisted to peel apples and the whole 9 yards. So everything that you think this vision was, it was.
Wow.
And the big moment, a big proud moment for me on this was that one of the restaurants put my name on their menu. Now their menu was a chalkboard, but still it was pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Addie's apple pies. And as you said, while my career started officially after college and then graduate school in the likes of corporate America, Bain and Company, Disney, Reebok, I look back at this moment as very formative because it was when I think that true entrepreneurial spark got ignited.
Yeah. I'm really curious about that. How did you, a 12-year-old, convince these restaurants to buy and serve your apple pies?
Well, it started out that there was this trip to Spain and people had to figure out ways to earn the money to pay for it. I had made an apple pie and my dad came home and said, "This is a really good apple pie. It's much better than the pie that I had at the so-and-so restaurant last week.
Mm.
Why can't more people make a good apple pie?"
Wow.
And I just put 2 and 2 together and said, I wonder if I could offer my pies. So I remember making 5 pies and bringing them around to 5 different restaurants, and 3 of them said they would take them. At
Wow.
one point, it got a little hairy because one restaurant wanted me to make 10 pies a day and 20 pies a day on the weekends. And
Oh my goodness.
way back when, there was no health consideration or getting approval or anything like that, but it became too much. So
Yeah.
after about 3 months, we had to stop this entrepreneurial venture, but
Uh,
who knows? Who knows?
yeah. Well, needless to say, I hope you got to go to Spain.
I did get to go to Spain. I think the proof was in the pudding. People love the pies, and believe it or not, I don't know how much pies in your neighborhood go for these days, but in those days, $4 was a lot for a pie.
Oh,
And that's what I charged, and it had 2 sticks of butter and all the wonderful ingredients, cinnamon, sugar, and incredibly delicious apples. So honestly, I don't know, but it seemed pricey. But if you divided it up and sold it into 8 or 10 pieces,
Yeah.
the restaurants could make a lot of money, and they liked the idea of sharing that not only was it a good apple pie, but that it was helping a student go to Spain.
I love it. I
The idea of
love that.
storytelling and entrepreneurship and mission
Yeah.
all wrapped into a nice little bow.
I love that. Not only that, but you were a CEO of your own company. That's great.
Yes, as crazy as it was.
So take us forward from there. I guess you decided not to go to the Culinary Institute after that.
Exactly. Well, I went to my public high school and was a cheerleader and was a pretty serious student too. And then I'd never been west of Pennsylvania and I got accepted to a school where they had palm trees on the campus.
Ah,
So going to California at the age of 18 was incredibly formative for me.
wow.
Stanford was that definition of the wild, wild west. And it was refreshing. I remember walking on the campus after I was accepted and seeing skateboarders and bikers go to class and people not wearing shoes. And I'm thinking, wow, this is a cool happening place. And Stanford was all about openness, making your own mark, creating your own path. And it really was all about possibility, potential and
Mm,
possibility. And I think that also shaped me significantly in those years where you're beginning to think about who you are and what you
mm.
can do.
Oh, neat. That sounds really cool. The way you're describing that, it reminds me a little bit of where I went to school in the East at Hampshire College in Amherst, where there were people walking around with bare feet too, even in the winter.
That's right. That's a very open, progressive school as well. So
Yes. Yeah. Yep. So, what did you study at Stanford?
I was an English major. I graduated at a time when there weren't a lot of jobs, and I might have gone on, I don't know, 30 job interviews, although I was smack square in Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley was not doing well in the early 80s. And believe it or not, I got my first job via New York Times marriage announcement. Someone saw that a woman working in Menlo Park was getting married and moving to New York and sent it to me and said, I wonder if there's an opening there. So I wrote a letter. It was a very small company, 40 people. And the woman actually was taking her job with her, but they decided they could use an analyst and they liked my gumption. So I got the job.
Now, that is a great story of how somebody identified a possible job opening. That's a riot. So,
What was interesting too is that my next job, I'm laughing here a bit, it was my apple pie that helped me land my next
oh
job
my goodness.
at Bain and Company because my pie business was on my resume in the fine print at the bottom, other things that you might want to know about someone. And they called my bluff. Like, really? You make apple pie? And so I baked them one as a thank you note,
I love it.
dropped it off to the reception, a big apple pie, and I'm certain it got me the job.
These are the things that may sound silly, but when you're competing with so many highly skilled people, how do you distinguish yourself?
Yeah, that's a good
And
point.
I'm not saying everybody has to start baking, but there are different things that people don't think of to just say, here's a part of who I am, not just what I've done. Right?
Well, I think that's a really good lesson too, Tammy, that people relate to people and showing more of yourself is very powerful.
Yeah.
A, because they know who you are more, and B, they can then have ways of relating to you beyond just that job description.
So I want to go back for a moment to the first job before Bain. What were you doing in that first job?
As I told you, it was a very difficult job market.
Yeah.
The company was a nuclear exchange corporation that
Oh,
uranium between the different power plants. I wasn't pro nuclear, but I needed a job.
yeah.
I decided I would love to be an analyst and learn more about it and begin to pay my bills and my college debt. That's where I started.
So you were an analyst.
Actually, funny as it goes, Bain and Company was right next door. And when I was walking by after I was in this first job, some of my fellow students that were in my class that had gone to Bain saw me and said, Addie, what are you doing? Where are you working? I said, I'm working over here. They said, why don't you come over here? We're interviewing. And tomorrow's the last day to put your resume in. I said, I'm really not pro nuclear. I think that would be good.
Yeah.
So that started the process. That's where I met my husband, believe it or not. How one thing leads to another, which leads to another. Little
Exactly.
decisions or little forks in the road that you don't think are that meaningful can have a pretty big impact on you
Mm-hmm.
over time.
That is exactly how people find their way into new opportunities or gain new information all the time. And yet, many of us of varying generations still think that the first thing we need to do when we're looking for our next opportunity is to start applying for jobs. And yet, the best way to find those new opportunities is simply to just show up. You showed up running into people, talking to people. It doesn't have to always be just that you ran into someone, but even reaching out to people, even if they're not doing the kind of work you want to do. But you just never know who knows who. And that's really how most people find their next roles. It's not because they looked up something on Indeed or way back when picked up a newspaper. Although you did pick up a newspaper to get that first job.
Was were the thing. Y'all have to remind ourselves that we didn't have smartphones, we didn't have the internet. It's hard to imagine that's the way it was.
Yeah, when we had envelopes and stamps and put our resumes on nice paper.
And we did have big computers. They were very big. They were not portable.
So all those little forks in the road, you delivered an apple pie, you got a job, you got a husband. And how long were you at Bain for?
2 years at that job, that analyst job, they call them associate consultants
Hmm?
before business school. And after
Okay.
business school, I landed at Disney at their studio lot in Burbank, California.
Oh, wow.
Fun little tidbit there is that in those days, if you were a manager or above, they made you go through a week of onboarding training, which included 30 minutes of being a grade B character in the theme park.
I love it.
So for all of 30 minutes, I was Happy the Dwarf. I have a really fun picture of myself with Happy the Dwarf's head off, with my head sticking out in the Happy the Dwarf costume. But I really thought that I'd hit the job jackpot. I was walking down Mickey Lane, and it really felt like a dream come true. And then a few months later, they asked me to run what was at the time a bit of a struggling children's publishing division.
Oh,
But again, twists of fate, however you want to say it, I would say personal circumstance led me to leave Disney
oh,
East because my then fiance's father suddenly passed away,
Oh.
and we made the decision to formalize our married life together in Boston versus California.
I see.
It's a really hard decision because it was kind of like the world is your oyster. It was an exciting career opportunity, but I didn't want to start married life separate. It became apparent that my soon to be husband would not be able to leave Boston after all because he had to take care of his family. And so that was the decision that we made. And then starting my career yet again.
Yeah.
So fits into your theme well. One thing led to another, did a couple of different things, and then suddenly found myself in another new business development role at a tech company, which was at the time Lotus Development.
Yeah.
And for those folks listening out there, it was the precursor to Excel
Yes.
and had 97% market share at one point.
Yeah. It was a big deal here.
Knows the name anymore.
Yeah. No, I remember it very well. Lotus 123.
Exactly.
Is
Exactly.
the product.
And then I worked on opening up alternative channels of distribution for them, which was they have great products, but how do they get to consumers differently? And they were selling to businesses, B2B, but computers were moving into homes.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a lot of distribution for selling into homes. And so my charge was to open up new channels of distribution for them to sell their products in environments where, you know, individuals, professionals who wanted to set up an office at home. Again, it sounds crazy because everybody is working from home these days, but
Right.
to load software and to sell home versions of that, that was very exciting and very entrepreneurial. So if you
Yeah.
think about the roles that I had, even in these big companies, they were very entrepreneurial.
Yeah. That's interesting. I was just thinking back to at the time when you were probably trying to open up those channels so that people could get Lotus on their floppy disks to put into their 286 or 386 desktop PCs. I don't even know if they were called PCs at the time.
I know. Actually, one of the projects I worked on, I was recruited to go into the marketing greenhouse to think about different ways of showing up to build adjacent businesses. And one of the projects I worked on was the HP Palm Top, which included Lotus 123 into an HP calculator. And that was so incredibly innovative at the time. And another company that was manufacturing desktop PCs and loading the software, the Lotus 123 software, onto those computers with an unlock. So you had 3 chances to try it, and then it locked, and then if you liked it, then you could open it up, and that was, again, going into the home. But I also opened up all kinds of channels of distribution, generating $5 million in revenue into these new consumer-oriented computer
Yeah.
superstores that
Yeah.
never were in before for Lotus, that we were selling, I think, the home versions for $99. So
Wow.
it was a lot of exciting opportunity and also thinking outside the box, which I think probably was in my nature from that very first apple pie.
I think it was. So take us forward from there. I know you started a few companies yourself.
On maternity leave from Lotus, I wrote my first business plan, and then Bright Ideas was born. And the idea for Bright Ideas was focusing on helping teachers and parents use technology to make learning more engaging for kids.
Mm.
But the real opportunity, and it came right from me opening up the channels for Lotus, was I just had my first daughter, and I had a lot of friends and colleagues that I had worked with and gone to school with that were a little bit ahead of me, had kids that were 3, 4, and 5 years old. And by the way, suddenly computers were coming down in price and they were going into the home. And there was this burgeoning educational software industry that enabled people to load educational software on. So kids, even if they didn't read yet or write yet, could learn how to read and write and do math and all through game playing, which again sounds crazy to even talk about now, but the world of Math Blaster was this new phenomenon.
Yeah.
You know, to turn your productivity tool as a PC into a home learning tool and environment. And so I thought about it and I said, wow, there are all these tech savvy moms that are at home with their first or second children. And there's this burgeoning software industry, and there's no distribution for those products. I wonder if you could take those professionals, let them do something flexibly while they were able to sort of get access to great software for their own children, and that empower them to demonstrate, educate, and sell the software to schools, parents, and teachers in their communities. So Bright Ideas was born. And then, you know, it was out of a spare bedroom, and I have to say, a lot of hard work and sweat. We were shipping product out of our basement. We had reps all over the country that were mostly stay-at-home moms that in those days the cost of childcare was so much and women weren't making as much. So if somebody was going to stay home, typically it was the woman that made that decision or was forced to make that decision economically. And so we had this army of professionals who were able to leverage their talents and strengths to drive a new channel of distribution into schools and homes in a very personal way, solving the distribution problem, solving the problem for parents that weren't as technical because you had to make sure the software could run on your own computer. And so there was a lot of complication with that. And so Bright Ideas started. 4.5 years later, I was lucky enough to sell it to a division of Pearson Education. And I would say that I was super lucky and the timing was awesome looking back, but you never know. And that was my first real business. The apple pie business was not the same thing as starting a full-fledged company, but it was the beginning.
Yeah. Wow. And when you sold it, were you looking to sell it or were you all in like, yes, let's develop this and then move it to sell it? And
Yeah,
you had other ideas, you know?
Yeah, that's such a great question because I was not looking to sell it. There was a personal moment that happened where we were shipping out of my basement 3 times a week, and the neighbors were upset that UPS trucks were coming down. Of course, now they come down every single day, twice a day, but in those days, that wasn't the case in residential neighborhoods. But I was not looking to sell, but I was going on a business trip and I was pregnant with my second daughter and I tripped down a flight of stairs in my house. I was holding one of those suit bags that has one of those hooks, and the hook got caught on my ankle, and I tumbled down just like a cartoon character. And at that moment, I started to cry, and I said, I hope I didn't lose the baby because I was like 3 or 4 months pregnant then with my second child. And my husband said, enough already. We need to find an investor or we need to sell it. You need to do this. And it was one of those aha moments that was personal and clairvoyant in a way.
Yeah.
And so I started looking for some investors, and literally, Addison Wesley, which was a division of Pearson, read a brief that Forrester Research had written on my company. And they were challenged with selling technology with their book reps. And they thought if we could take their reps that sell technology and pair them with our book reps, we'd be able to really do something significant. So they became interested in investing. And then, literally at the 11th hour, they said, wait, why don't we just buy it outright? And I decided, okay, that might be good to go back into a corporation where there was more resources now. It just was the right time, and
Yeah.
that's what happened.
Now, were you still working with them during that acquisition?
For almost 2 years, there was a transition of their CEO, and when that CEO transitioned, he was not interested in investing anymore in educational software, etc. Yeah.
Okay. So that was another natural turning
That
point.
was a
it sounds like.
natural transition, exactly. And I have to say that the big aha there on the educational software business wasn't in the software because we didn't really develop the software. It's really powering this network of what we call Bright Ideas consultants to open up and sell a product to schools and parents.
Yeah.
And so it enabled flexible work for tech savvy professionals so they could stay current, they could contribute and earn while raising their families.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like leveraging that strength or unlocking that potential, which was both in kids and in their parents. And in fact, the
Yeah.
tagline of that company was a brighter future at your child's fingertips. But it was really a brighter future for a mom
Yeah.
because she had flexibility at a time when there wasn't a lot of choice.
No.
There worked full time and then some, or you stayed at home. There weren't a lot of organizations or environments that allowed you to do something flexible that was also meaningful. So that notion of talent on the sidelines and unlocking potential wherever you are, I think is a theme that I have really wrapped myself around and driven through all my companies. So
Yeah.
my second venture, the Beacon Street Girls, played to learning a lot about, creating brands and wholesome brands, which is when I was at Disney. I felt that there weren't enough strong, positive role models to help girls build confidence, resilience, and a true belief that they could be anything they wanted to be. And I would say that the aha moment there, by the way, having sold my first company to a publisher and learning about the publishing world, was could you use storytelling to impact behavior? And this was storytelling on steroids. I created a world for girls that was safe, positive, and used 22 full length novels and all the bling associated with it bags, backpacks, accessories, books were bundled in bags, everything that girls love to create a world and characters and friends, trusted editorial friends, in the case of 5, 7th graders, that girls could be inspired by and relate to. And it was all about reassuring them through the eyes of these 5, 7th graders that were growing up in a fictional world, reassuring them that no matter where you came from, your strengths were the thing that won the day, and your strengths could take you to new places and help you build a more positive future. Again, unlocking their own personal potential, even if they had other constraints in their lives.
And how did you decide to name it Beacon Street Girls? I can imagine the reference, but I'm curious what it meant to you.
I'm so glad you asked that question. So, Beacon Street is a famous street in Brookline, Mass. I think at the time there were 69 different languages spoken in the high school. And so I wanted a diverse environment where people from all walks of life could be part of that community. I wanted it to be a real place. There was a real great grandmother, Ethel Weiss, who ran a toy shop and candy store in true life that we wrote into the stories. And I wanted it to be a place that girls could go to and visit and have the story come to life. And Beacon, of course, is Beacon.
Right. A beacon. Yeah, I love it.
Light the way, show me the way.
Yeah.
And street meaning people from all walks of life.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I'm so glad. I'm glad I asked that. That's wonderful. So, what happened with Beacon Street Girls? And how come you stopped at 22 books?
Well, at book 14, we had sold 1.5 million copies as a self-publisher and then decided that it was time to get the publishers involved. So we licensed the rights to Simon and Schuster, licensed it to 22. The world fell apart in 2008, and it was hard to get additional funding to take that company to the next level, which would have been a virtual junior high, which we had built but wanted to really blow out. And so that part of the story didn't materialize given market conditions. But the books successfully have been selling for the last 10 plus years through Simon and Schuster, and the rights just were reverted back to me.
Oh,
So excited about that. And we touched millions of girls' lives in ways that were positive and supportive. And the virtual junior high that we built, and we had a website from the beginning that you could join the online club, but over time it became far more robust and interactive. I can't imagine what it would be like today if we resurrected it, but it really created a world where girls could feel more like themselves
yeah.
and continue to explore their strengths. And confidence is so important. If you lose that confidence when you're 13, it's pretty hard to gain it back. And one thing that I did understand in doing all the research before starting the Beacon Street Girls is what does happen to a girl's confidence between the age of 8 and 14, where it's super high and then it dips precipitously. And so you find yourself as a grown-up looking at incredibly talented women that have done so much that then end up on the sidelines for different reasons
Mhm.
and then have low confidence when they think about how they can get back into a career.
Yeah, I see it all the time. Absolutely. So take us forward.
So, about 10 years after the Beacon Street Girls, we had a car accident. I was driving and a couch fell off a truck while I was going 65 miles an hour. And my daughter ended up with a pretty serious concussion, which led her to step out of a year of school. And so, for the first time in my career, I stepped out with her. And lo and behold, when I was out helping her reintegrate back into her life, I saw those same professionals that I had started with in my first company, Bright Ideas, and the problem still hadn't been solved. It still was inordinately difficult to reignite your career after you took some time off, no matter if you had a fancy MBA or degree, PhD, and even 10 to 12 years of work experience where you had contributed significantly. While I took the year off to help care for my daughter, I started noodling on this other idea, which why hasn't somebody fixed this problem? Thousands and thousands of professionals who are seasoned, mostly women, who are ready to contribute again, but were blocked out because they'd taken time out. So I set my sights on changing that. And again, that really goes back to that theme of impacting people, unlocking and unleashing what they can contribute by building their confidence, building their resilience, and having them understand better their strengths. And by doing so, powering them to do more with what they have. And that became my North Star.
Yeah. The thread is very clear through many of the things that you've done.
And then I do want to say, because I think at the end of the day, Tammy, I am an entrepreneur at heart. And midway into this journey with helping professionals, both men and women, return to the workforce and doing it with large corporations around the country, and so proud of really impacting people's lives and impacting those corporations that get access to talent they wouldn't have, but supported in a way. I mean, we're not a job board. We really help support and train professionals and actually employ them. So they're on our payroll for 6 months while they get their sea legs going back into the
Right.
workforce. But in the middle of all this, I saw my own children, now grown up in Silicon Valley, feeling that they didn't have enough support in growing and developing within the organization. And so many women and men who got locked out in that
Mhm.
career growth as
Mhm.
they entered organizations that were difficult to navigate. And so I created another part of reachHIRE that was all about unlocking the leader from within with a leadership program aimed at helping more professionals, both men and women, grow, develop, and seize their strengths so that they could contribute more and do it in a holistic way that allowed them to be more who they were, more authentic. And so Aurora was born.
Yeah. Tell us about Aurora, but I want to make sure people understand what Reach Higher is because you've described it, but I think we want to really map that out a little bit so that people
Sure.
really get it.
So again, there's a lot of avenues to help people fix their resume, work on their LinkedIn profile, maybe get their social media thumbprint up and more active, and even do interview prep. But until you're in a job, until you're building skills, it's not the same. And we have been successful at co creating jobs with corporations that help people leverage the skills and the strengths that they have had in the past and bring to new jobs, new industries, and new settings. So that even though they might have been out 10 years, they can contribute in meaningful ways. But we don't just find the job, we find them the job, we help them get the job, we provide onboarding, training, and reimmersion, and then we provide ongoing support, coaching, and training, as well as our platform, Aurora, to provide that 24/7 support. And we do it with a live person, a program manager, that helps them reintegrate into the organization as they're doing a full time job. And so after 6 months in a job, but with all the surrounding support, you can imagine confidence is strengthened, skills are strengthened, people understand and realize what they're bringing
Yeah.
and what more they need to do, and also how they can leverage their strengths in ways to show up even more effectively. And so it's not just dropping somebody into a job, it's actually supporting them to help them grow, develop, and contribute. And that's exactly what our leadership development program has become, the same thing. How do you leverage your strengths, unlock them, understand what they are, and then show up more effectively so you can contribute and move the needle forward more effectively for your organization and thereby get promoted. And I'm kind of conflating the two businesses a little. Our leadership programs have seen 40% promotion rate within a year, which is unheard of, and increased retention, increased sense of belonging, because everything is so intentional. It's not just a few pieces of things thrown together, it's an intentional journey that helps people recognize what they're bringing to the table, unlock more of it, maybe put to the side those things that aren't their strengths so that they can truly become more than what they believe and what their organizations see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know some people who have been through the reachHIRE part of your programs, and it opens opportunity for people who thought they were washed up, basically.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely phenomenal.
Well, Tammy, you don't also have to have a break of 10 years.
Right.
People have breaks of 2 years, people have breaks of 7 years, people have breaks of 15 years.
Yeah.
We even have placed people that have had an 18-year break. You have to have a growth mindset. You have to be willing to say, "I wanna learn, I wanna do this. I may be okay, and I am accepting of the fact that somebody who's my child's age might be managing me. But I'm okay with that because I want to learn, I want to contribute." And as we know, technology changes so much that we're all needing to be that way, even if we just graduated from college or grad school.
Absolutely.
That growth mindset. So having that, but powering that with all the support, coaching, and tools to really leverage yourself in new ways is, I think, what it's all about.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's my North Star, right? Unlocking that potential, building that confidence, digging deep into those strengths, maybe ignoring some of those weaknesses or being okay to admit that there are weaknesses and shoring them up, leaving your ego at the door. But I think it's that made me feel that our return programs really had that secret sauce of unlocking potential for people inside companies that were stuck as well.
Yes, I that's what I love about how that's evolved. It wasn't just about bringing or making that connection with companies, bringing people from the outside, but then also helping companies to strengthen from within as well.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and I
Yeah.
thought about it like these two ways: bringing great professionals back, reinserting them with the tools and the support to grow and thrive, and then taking people that are in the organizations and doing more to help them grow and thrive,
Right.
to help more individuals contribute and have more companies power the people to really have the impact.
No, I think this is needed all over the place. Is Reach Higher and Aurora, are those mostly working with people in the New England area? Because I know that's where you're based. Are people there may be people listening to this from other parts of the US. I have a lot of listeners in Canada. What would they do if they start hearing this and thinking, "That's for me, that's for me?"
Well, First of all, we focus our return to work programs under the reacHIRE umbrella in the US, but we partner with companies globally and have different flavors. So we might not have them as employees internationally, but we still can run those programs and provide all that great support, training, and those candidates. On the Aurora front, we're global. So we have multiple organizations that globally will drive hundreds of people with their organization in a given year through our virtual program. That, by the way, is also 6 months. Now, organizations, companies need to adopt the leadership development program and then offer it to their employees as opposed to an individual raising their hand and saying, "Oh, I think Aurora sounds good for me. I'm going to sign up for it." We don't offer it that way. We're really all about having the company power the growth and support that growth. And we have a number of different organizations that are running 300 and 400 people in 35 countries
Wow.
through a program in 1 year.
Wow.
We have other organizations that will bring 48 people through a journey in 4 different teams. And the thing that I didn't say that I'm probably most proud of, and is probably one of the last legs of my stool in this case, is that the Aurora programs, the leadership programs, are powered by senior executives who have just finished their first careers. So if you can imagine the in-person, which is in-person virtually, so it's the synchronous part of the Aurora journey, is powered by a host of professionals that have so much left to give.
Yeah.
Again, that North Star that have all that potential, but at the age of 50 or 55 get pushed out of corporate America, and they still have 15, 20 years more of advice and learning and sharing to provide that next generation of leaders. And so, kind of full circle, right?
I know. I want to say that you keep creating these gifts that keep giving. It's wonderful. Is there anything further that we haven't covered here that we should also point to? I want to make sure we're getting it all.
I guess two different things. Tammy, all of my ventures has really spun out of problems that I had identified as I was making my own life journey. First, recognizing that new moms, I was a new mom, had enormous talent, but work in those days was not offered part time. And if you had come up with a way to leverage that talent and create flexible work arrangements that enabled them to work while they were at home, but at the same time solving a business problem, that could be powerful. And that was that confluence of educational software, computers coming into the home, and this workforce of people that was sitting on the sidelines that had some time and flexibility that could be powered. So that was one problem. Then the next problem were girls being bombarded by media messages that I thought preyed on their self-esteem at the time when they were beginning to lose their confidence. And could you create a media brand that was positive and uplifting that girls would love and get involved with, that could also strengthen them and was quote unquote good for them? That was at a time when I had my daughters who were right at that age. And then, how hard it was to return to work after taking some time off. People have different life circumstances, right? They have health issues. They're taking care of elder parents. They may have a child that needs extra help. They may have any other reason to take a step away from a work environment for a while. Could even be a personal passion project. But why should it be that high potential people can't get back into the workforce because that happened to them?
Right.
And so that was a problem that I felt needed to be solved.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't just about getting back to work, but it was about when you're back at work, how do you succeed and grow? And not just for the people returning to the workforce, but people that were in the workforce that didn't want to leave.
Right.
One way of fixing the problem of returning to work is creating environments where workers can have flexibility so they don't have to choose just one thing or the other.
Right.
And so by creating that leadership development program with the Aurora platform that we've created, really powers people to grow, advance, and stay, and allows them to magnify their strengths to have greater impact. And so that in combination with unlocking that potential of these senior executives that are also now sitting on the sidelines, it comes full circle.
Yeah.
And that's where I am.
Yeah. Is that all? I'm kidding. It all makes perfect sense. And I can say from my own experience, I've seen people who have had the opportunity to enjoy a very full career and have grown over the years. And then something happens. There's an acquisition or some kind of merger where their position is eliminated. And literally within a few days, their confidence is shredded away in no time. And yet they are not done. They're ready to do something. And yet everything they knew about themselves professionally just slips away. And I've seen it happen over and over again. And so I think that many of the things that you're doing, even though you're focusing more on people who've perhaps taken a break, even though the break wasn't really a break for many of them, they were still working very hard outside of the workplace. There's still something here about giving people those pathways and avenues to really leverage their talents, their abilities, and then to grow further. And
And I think at the end of the day, whether you're 13 and trying to figure out your place in the world and, what your voice is,
yeah,
or you're 22 and just starting a job, whether you're taking time off because you are taking care of elder parents or young children and you started a career but you had to stop it, whether you're in an organization and you're just trying to figure out how you put one foot in front of another and be seen. It's awfully challenging to be heard when you're in an organization of 5,000, 10,000, 50,000 people.
yeah,
How do you make your way and make your mark?
yeah,
I feel as I've gone on my journey through my stages of life, I feel like I have evolved. I continue to see opportunity. And I feel like that every age and stage is like a different chapter. And all of us have to think that way. And that you always hear when one door closes, another one opens. And I just believe in the world of possibility, which is where we started this
yeah,
conversation, right?
yeah, yeah,
Potential and opportunity. And I think that my aha moment with reachHIRE was, yes, people need to figure out a way of coming back and we can help them. But what about all the people that are stuck where they are in companies that are just going to leave? And it just creates this cycle that just keeps going round and round. If
right,
you could stop them from leaving, engage them in meaningful ways,
right,
let them understand more of their strengths and ways that they can contribute so they could grow, you'd have less people leaving. The company would benefit significantly. So, and the individual would grow personally and professionally. So, all that was like this evolution.
yeah. No, I think it's really, really important because there are way too many revolving doors out there right now. And it's not it just doesn't create the kinds of environments in which people can really grow and flourish and organizations can grow and flourish. So, if people want to find out more about what you're up to and your organizations are up to, what's the best way for them to do that?
Oh, they could go to our website, reachhire.com with one H, REACHIRE.
Okay.
Say on hire, companies
Yeah.
reaching higher and
Yeah.
professionals reaching higher. And obviously, the return business has a hiring component.
I love it.
So that's a way of doing it. You can always reach out to me on LinkedIn. We're always excited about creating more opportunities for individuals by identifying corporations that will create those jobs. Because it's not just about helping the people with skills, it's about having the jobs to insert those individuals in.
Right.
On the leadership development front, everyone's a leader. Everyone
Yes.
has potential. And the more organizations recognize that and invest ever so slightly in those individuals, the more impact and power and longevity they will have with their employees.
Yeah, absolutely. And one final question that I always like to ask my guests is a lot of people listening here are thinking about what's next for them. And what would be a key piece of advice you might give someone who is considering their options or trying to develop their next steps?
So, my biggest piece of advice for anyone thinking about a transition is simple. Look for the potential that others and even you might be overlooking and then lean into it. I think
Mm.
that's what I did. I, in my own way, stumbled upon opportunity as I found problems that I couldn't figure out why they weren't solved. You're an expert, Tammy, but I feel transitions are uncomfortable because they're
Mm.
uncertain. And that's also where the opportunity lives. So, taking a step, experimenting, and trusting your skills and experience, you'll be surprised how far that can take you. And I would say, lastly, don't go it alone.
Yes.
You're an expert. Find the resources, find the books, find people that recognize you for the potential that you have, who will push you and help you realize it fully. And that combination with curiosity,
Yeah,
courage, and support is what makes a transition not just possible, but transformative.
absolutely. Oh, and on that absolutely affirmative note, I'm going to say thank you, Addie, for being here today. I am inspired by the work that you do and the way that you have evolved your career from the inside out.
Well, so thank you so much, Tammy, for having me. I am so inspired by the work that you do, by your amazing book and your podcast that has spanned 7 years and almost 300 episodes, which is so much work in and of itself. So, thank you for this wonderful opportunity. And I hope that you continue to thrive and grow.
That's the plan. Thanks for sticking around to the end of my interview with Addie Swartz. What is your key takeaway from our conversation? If you are interested in any of the resources mentioned in today's podcast, you can find them in the show notes on my website at tammygoolerloeb.com/podcast. Just look for episode 289. And while you're there, you can also subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any episodes. Did you know that ratings and reviews on Apple Podcasts can help this podcast reach more people? Please help me to inspire more people to move their careers in meaningful directions by clicking on the Apple Podcasts button. Leave an honest rating and brief review there. Thank you. Are you anticipating your next professional move? Check out my award-winning book, Work from the Inside Out. Break through 9 common obstacles and design a career that fulfills you. It's available through my website, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, independent bookstores, or through your local library. You can also help sustain this podcast by buying me a cup of coffee at buymeacoffee.com/TammyGL. Since this podcast is self-funded, your support is acknowledged and appreciated. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, it's never too late or too impossible to increase your sense of fulfillment and satisfaction in your work and other meaningful activities. Let me know how it's going for you. I'd love to hear from you. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to the Work from the Inside Out podcast. For more information, you can find us at www.workfromtheinsideout.com.